Welcome to My Comic Shop History. I am your host, Anthony Desiato. This season on My Comic Shop History, we've been exploring a number of different topics related to the world of collecting. We've talked about original art and pops and being a completist, and how our fandom and our first impressions shape us as collectors. This episode, we're going to be talking about something that I am personally very curious about. We will be discussing how fatherhood impacts one's collecting. So I've mentioned a number of times on the show, I'm getting married in October during New York Comic Con weekend, though not at New York Comic Con, as has been asked. And I'm very excited about that. Kids are, I feel like that's something that we'll be getting to down the line a little bit. It's on the horizon, though not quite yet. So that's why I'm really curious to talk to the three gentlemen I have here today and hear from them about how fatherhood, having a wife and then having kids, kind of impacted their hobby. So on that note, let me introduce my guests here. First, we have returning guest, John Eric Aguilar. John, welcome back.
Thank you.
And then we have two new voices, both also former Alternate Realities customers. To my right, we have Mr. Joe Morciglio.
Hey, how's it going?
And then across from me, we have Mr. Matt Horton.
Hi.
All right, so we are recording here on a Wednesday at Spider's Web. Thank you, as always, to Paul for having us here. So, guys, like I said, I want to talk about fatherhood. This is our Big Dads episode. I titled it Three Comic Book Men and a Baby. But you all have young children. So I guess maybe to kick us off, if you don't mind going around and just telling the audience, how many kids you have, what are their names, how old are they, and then we'll kind of get into it from there. So maybe John Eric, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I have two children. Aaron, he's 4.5, and Eli, we call him, is 17 months.
Awesome. Matt?
I have two kids. Aiden is about 3.5, and Penny, our little one, is 7 months old.
I just have one son, Connor. He's only 9 months old so far.
Right. Well, first and foremost, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm friends with all of you, on Facebook. I see the stuff that you post. So I've seen that you guys have managed to continue your hobbies. So that's very encouraging.
Yes.
I think again, like I said, for me, you guys are ahead of where I am. So I'm looking ahead a little bit. And, not that it's a concern, but I want to hear from you guys about how you've been able to balance everything. So I suppose my first question is, before we get to how having a family shifted things, can you tell me a little bit about what sort of collectors you were beforehand?
I collect a lot of different things. But my comic book collection is the largest right now. For the things I do get, I have about 56 short boxes, which is about 3 large bookcase things full completely, which is taking up a large chunk of my kids' room. So that's something I'm sure will come up later. I also used to collect figures, so I have a bunch that are open because I used to try and display them, but I don't have enough space to display everything, so a lot of it is in boxes. I still have figures that are in boxes and stuff that I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll sell, and they're just sitting there. So I've got like a closet full of that stuff too. So those are the main two things, but it takes up a lot of room.
Yeah. Well, that's something that's come up time and again during the course of these episodes, that most of us are limited in some way, shape, or form by budget and or space.
Yeah.
And I think we would all agree, with unlimited funds and unlimited space, I mean, sky's the limit. You could get anything. And certainly having a family is, one really quick way to, force you to, really prioritize and focus. But so Matt and Joe, what are you guys like as collectors?
I don't have a crazy large collection. I have 15 long boxes. I've been collecting since, I would say, the early 90s. I really started seriously collecting at Death of Superman. Mm-hmm. And then I fell out of reading all comics sometime in the mid-90s around Onslaught. When that happened, I stopped reading until about the late 90s. And then since then, I've been seriously reading. But I'm a weird collector. I don't collect for complete runs. Think of it like I collect for like the best hits of what is happening in the comic, and then I junk everything else. So for example, like the only real comics I have complete runs on is I have a complete run on Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men. Ultimate Spider-Man in particular is spectacular, but a lot of the other stuff, like right now with Marvel, it's like I I maybe have like 6 issues like here and there. I'll drop, I'll come back. The storyline is meaningless to me. It's mostly how good the writing is. And in my mind, it's like, how could somebody pull a comic out of one of my bins and be like, oh, this is good? You're pretty much not going to pull a comic that's crap out of one of my 15 or so pens. But it doesn't take up much room. I have a custom-made comic book shelf that you slide them into.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
That one of my friends built, which is nice. And beyond that, like I said, if I junk something, it ends up in my classroom in a huge. I have a huge bin where like kids could just take the comics and read them, or like chop them up as collage material or use them as source material or something like that. So most of my stuff ends up in my classroom if I'm not reading it, or in my kids' like reading shelf if it's appropriate. I'm not going to give them like Walking Dead or something like that.
Yeah, you are a high school art and film teacher
Yes.
at Iona Prep, where I went. You went there as well, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, but at different times. I don't
Yes.
know that we overlapped.
No, I think
Maybe a
we
little
might-
bit.
When did you graduate?
2005.
No, there wasn't overlap.
No.
I graduated in 01.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, yeah,
Very cool.
art teacher.
And what about you, sir, Joe?
I don't know that if collect is appropriate, more of hoarding. I've got a closet of comics at my mother's apartment, toys in my attic, just the whole attic. It's ridiculous. Boxes of statues, and I used to work at Archie Comics, and we would get like comp copies. So I have boxes of those just in a room. It's a lot. Just a lot of junk.
Yeah. Well, at least you have a place though to store them, right?
Yeah. For now.
Because that's something that I ran into. So I lived in my childhood home until just a couple of years ago. So, and I was an only child. I am an only child. So it's like, not that it was unlimited space, but there was a lot of space. That was never really a concern. Like, oh, if I get too many statues, I'm not going to be able to put the boxes anywhere. It's like there were enough closets. There was the garage. Like there were enough places to put the stuff. And then I moved to my own place. And there, I pared down my stuff a little bit, but there was still enough room. And now Steph and I are living together in a 1-bedroom apartment. And it's like, now it's like a concern. And I've talked about these pops every episode, it feels like. But, but that's one thing. Like, we've both been collecting that. And now it's at the point where, like, it really is a thought when we're deciding whether to start a new series of them or whatever. It's like, well, where are we going to put the figures themselves and the boxes? So, the space is a true concern, one that I am now familiar with.
Yeah, I laughed in the episode where you guys were talking about that, and you mentioned about, like, oh, we take them out of the boxes and we save the boxes, this and that, and I was like, I just laughed. I was like, just wait till the kids come. You ain't going to be saving those boxes for too much longer. Because you're like, where are you going to put all of that stuff? Because those boxes are a decent size, and even if you stack them or whatever, I was just like, yeah, once there's a little one running around.
You play like floor is lava. Nothing could go below like a certain height. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Completely agree.
Yeah, no, I'm anticipating that. Although in that episode, Chris Wilcock, he described how he does it, where he actually flattens the boxes.
Yeah, you'd have to.
And takes the plastic inserts out and he stacks them. I think if we did that, we'd be okay. But we're running out of wall space. I mean, we have them on floating shelves on the wall, but it's like we can only put up so many more.
I think at the end of the day, you'll end up with a closet full of boxes in plastic just stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. But sorry, so I think that gives us, a good sense of what you guys are like as collectors. So, I guess before we get to the kids, because I'm always curious about this. I mean, one of the many reasons why I'm marrying Steph is that she, is on board with this stuff. And it's not just that she humors me or she, quote unquote, allows it. I mean, she has a genuine interest in a lot of this stuff as well, which is great. I don't think it would work for me if it were otherwise. So I'm curious, before we even get to the kids aspect, I mean, your wives, how do they, Joe's already laughing. I mean, how do they view all of this stuff?
My wife knew what she was getting into the minute she said I do. We've been together since high school. So she saw my room, in high school and was like, oh, there's a lot of action figures on your computer desk. I'm like, yeah. She's like, play with them? I'm like, no. They just kind of sit there and collect dust. She's like, oh, okay.
So she knew what she was getting into.
She knew what she was getting into. Yeah, she saw the boxes of the long boxes of comics under the desk when she tried to push the chair under the desk. They get out of the way, and she's like, "It's not going." Look underneath. Oh, just a lot of comic boxes down there. Yeah, yeah. You read them all? No.
Now, I know from working at Alternate Realities, I mean, you would spend a lot of time at the store, and she
Oh,
would
yeah.
hang out there as
Yeah.
well. So it seemed like she was into
she's like she's like me, kind of nerdy in our own way and really into what we're into. I mean, she's a huge Disney freak, so back then it was any birthday or anniversary was like, oh, yeah, there's a Donald Duck statue. Oh, okay, here you go. And like me, I'm a huge Green Arrow fan, as you can tell with the hat. But I also I like archery a lot. So Hawkeye and Green Arrow and even like Quantum and Woody, like stuff like that. I would collect random things here and there. So it's like, oh, we'd go to the Disney store and they had Hawkeye's bow. I was like, she's like, oh, you're getting that. I'm like, yeah, damn right, I'm getting it. What are you gonna do with it? It's gonna sit in this box until I have a place to put it.
Oh, the eternal answer.
Yeah.
Do you do archery? I don't know if that's even the correct terminology.
I would assume, yeah. I have one of my friends. We go to a gun show in PA, and it's funny because you see all the flag waving Gator guns and I need a new gun this week, and it's like, you don't really need all that. But I liked archery and I liked shooting bows, and I finally found an actual green bow. So I was like, oh fuck, I'm getting this.
Oh, nice.
So bought that, took it home, and set up a target in my garage and just pulled the cars out and just shoot in the garage. But that's definitely one thing that's changed since you have a kid. Yeah.
No arrows flying around.
You can't just willy-nilly fire arrows when you got a little kid running around.
That's awesome. We got a Groupon once for archery lessons, and then we didn't go, and it expired. But
you should have done it.
It's something
awesome.
I would like to do, especially once we started watching Arrow when it was better, and it was very exciting. We thought we would do it, and then we didn't. But that's cool.
It's fun. It's one of those things you can pick up and do it for a little bit, and then stop. And then if you want to get back into it, just go back and be like, oh, because it's all muscle memory. So once you've gotten the draw weight of the bow and the aiming, it's like riding a bike, except with an arrow.
What about the rest of the women folk at the table here?
My wife also knew what she was getting into. I lived at my childhood home when we first started going out, and she saw my room, just toys and comics all over the place.
Well, now I don't mean to cut you off, but it's funny because both of you guys are like, yeah, they knew what they were getting into. Like, they came over and they saw it. Did they not know ahead of time? Like, did you talk about it?
Oh yeah, they
knew.
Okay. I was a collector, and I was into comics. And
although I guess there's a big difference between like, oh, I collect comics. It's like, okay, and then you see it. There's a big difference.
That's exactly it. You see it like all over. I had a small room, and it was just like jam packed full of stuff. But once we got married and when we moved in together, she was cool with letting me display stuff. We have some floating shelves, and like I had stuff all over the place, and she was totally cool with it. So that was awesome. I was definitely blessed with that. She was awesome with that. And so once we had kids, it was more like she wasn't the one that was like, you got to put this away. It was more like, I got to move this stuff. So she didn't even pressure me in that aspect. It was just kind of like, if I don't want the kid touching it, I can't have it below a certain level. So I got to start moving some stuff.
Well, the kids, I want to get to that. But on that earlier note, yeah, I ran into something similar where over the past couple of years, when I moved to my place first, I did start to kind of get rid of some of my things just because I didn't want them anymore. And I knew I would be moving again at some point, and I had just moved them. And I was like, I don't want to do this again. And there were things that I knew I wasn't going to reread, or statues that I didn't want to look at anymore, or whatever the case was. And so I got rid of a lot, and I posted a lot of it on Facebook, seeing if people wanted it and whatnot. And, there were a lot of people, especially from our alternate realities community, and they were like, oh, Steph's making you get rid of your stuff. And it's like, it drove me nuts because it's like, no, like that's not the situation. That's not a situation that would work for me or anything like that. So, I'm glad that, when you did make that decision, it was yours.
Yes.
As well. So, what about you, Matt?
I also dating my wife since high school. Actually, be together 14 years next week, which is crazy. I was supposed to be set up with my wife for my junior prom, and I refused to go with her. And it was 2 years later. I was out drinking in Schultz Field in Crestwood, and my wife happened to be there. and we hit it off. And I was like, oh, I was supposed to be set up with you 2 years ago, and it's never happened. And my friends were like, oh, she's really into geeky guys and yada yada. And then it came out that her brother was John Moran, who was an old school alternate reality person. And so she kind of knew John's more of a collector like you. Yeah. Like he's like a hoarder collector. So his collection was much larger than mine. So she very much knew everything with that. But similarly, I was a video game collector going into being with my wife, and I completely dropped that. I sold off everything, like hardcore, like consoles, games, yada yada. I sold off everything because it was either comics or video games, and video games started going the way of digital. So I was like, it makes less sense keeping my video game collection, and its video game collection was easier to sell off. So I sold off. Yeah, I sold off the video game stuff and kept the comic book stuff. So that did take a little bit of a hit, but yeah, no.
Now, when you say it was one or the other, was it space, money?
Space,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, totally space, yeah.
So I guess that brings us then to our, the big question of the day is how having kids affected you as collectors, either in terms of being more budget conscious or giving up a man cave or space in a man cave, or even maybe the biggest factor of all, time.
Yeah.
Because that's maybe what I think about the most when I think about having a family someday. It's like it's hard enough as it is, just with working and podcasting and whatnot, to stay current with comics and TV shows and whatnot. And so I imagine having young children, you have so little free time. How do you guys make it work?
It could be tough, especially if you're into a lot of things. Like I said, some things get sacrificed. Like I haven't really played a video game like on my own in. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times this entire year that I've actually got to play. And I used to play all the time because I still like reading comics. I still like I watch wrestling, and that takes up a lot of time too if you follow everything. So it's pretty. And the thing is, some things I don't want to introduce him to yet. He's still young. Some things might not be appropriate. So it's like. I do a lot of my stuff once the two kids are asleep, so that's even more limited time, because then it's like, all right, I've got to like 8 to midnight or whatever to figure out what I'm going to do.
That's not a bad chunk, though.
Well, yeah, yes and no, because that's also time spending time with the wife.
Oh, yeah, that's right, the wife. I forgot.
Exactly, can't forget about that. And just other chores and other stuff you couldn't get done when the kids were awake, right. So the time really diminishes, so you kind of have to pick and choose whatever you can kind of squeeze in, and you start making priorities, and that helps you with paring down stuff. It's just like, am I really going to do this? Like, for the longest time, I debated going digital with my comics because with space and budget concerns and just everything. When we bought our apartment, we bought it with a second bedroom, which is like, all right, for expansion, obviously it makes sense. And I just shoved all my stuff in there. At first I was like, here's my 3 bookcases of comics and more toys and this and that. But then once we had Aaron, it was just like, gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with this. And it's still there to this day, but it's more neatly organized so they can't pull anything down or whatever. But it was just like, what am I gonna do with this? And then also just to read books. I think someone in one of your earlier podcasts this season was mentioning how much of a hassle it is to like go pull out a single issue of, go in there, grab a box and pull out a single issue of your book to read, especially if I'm going into the kid's bedroom.
Right.
I'm going to be pulling that out to bring it to the living room to a heavy box and, bring it back and sort through stuff.
Daddy, what are you doing? Daddy needs to read now.
Exactly. So it's just like, I don't think, so that helped me go digital. I fought it for the longest time. I liked having it in my hand, but then I was like, I just bought like the biggest iPad I could find that will make the transition easier.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I'm the host, so I can. So, but with the digital comics, that's something that I haven't really done. I really haven't done at all. Mm-hmm. But it's something that I think about, and I've mentioned on the show before that I've been getting back into monthly comics with the Rebirth books, and it's been a mixed experiment so far. Like, I've enjoyed being in that weekly routine again of coming to the comic shop on a Wednesday and getting my stack of books. Like, I like that, and it's fun. The books themselves, some I'm enjoying more than others, but I read them so quickly. And a lot of these, again, not to put them down, but it's like they were fun to read once, but I don't really see myself. Yeah. Matt, you were talking before about like the greatest hits. A lot of these things that I'm reading, I don't really I don't foresee that I'll consider them greatest hits that I would want to always have in my collection. So it's like now I have my stack that's piling up, since Rebirth started. And I don't know, I feel like I'll end up just giving them away at a certain point. But, maybe it would make sense to go digital. I mean, if DC had... Because, again, I'm not so familiar with it. Maybe you guys could tell me. But it seems like if you want to read a new DC comic digitally, you're paying the same price.
Yeah,
that puts me off a bit. I think if they were any cheaper, like by any amount, it'd be a lot more attractive, and I might consider doing that.
Yeah, it's tough because I know in Marvel, they all their books that you buy have a digital code, so you can read it physically or do it digitally. So what I did is I subscribed by print.
That's right, yeah. We talked about that when you were on the last time.
Yeah, I subscribed in print because it's like 44% off, and then you could chuck the actual issue, and you just paid $2 for your digital comic as opposed to the $4 that they're charging through Comixology or whatever, directly through Marvel or whatever. Unfortunately, I don't think DC does that yet.
DC. Yeah, I know DC, and that's primarily what I read.
Yeah,
so
and they don't have
tough.
an unlimited app either. They need to get on that because that would basically change. Like for Marvel, I'm like a year behind on Marvel. I haven't even read Secret Wars yet, but I'll get to it. It's there. I have it available, and I will definitely get to it. But yeah, it's the price wise. I couldn't imagine just paying $4 just for a digital, not having anything physical from it.
Two things. First, John Eric, I just noticed your shirt that says "I am your father" in the Star Wars print, which is perfect and highly appropriate for today's recording. But then when you were mentioning about how Marvel has the digital code, included with the print copy, Matt was shaking his head. What was?
I was shaking my head because I find it ridiculous. I find it ridiculous. It's like, why not just buy the print copy? Because it comes with a free version of the digital copy. It's still completely agree with you. It should be like 30% cover price to pay for the digital.
I agree.
Version. And like I said, from my kid's standpoint, I would love it if I could just have like a whole library set up for my kid on his iPad. As it stands currently, when my kid's finally interested, or I shouldn't say, let me back up. When he's finally able to read the comics and not destroy them, there's so much effort that has to go into getting the box down. It weighs like 90 pounds. You have to go through, and by the way, I'm really OCD. I have Excel spreadsheets. So you can
I do too.
You can pinpoint exactly where in a long box an arc is by artist. I have to do that because so much of my artwork and my lesson plans are based on comic book. So if I have to pull like a random arc by an artist from like 7 years ago, I have to know exactly where it is. So like all that stuff, it's just it's so much work. Whereas like the digital version, you could just be like, oh, search, and I'm reading it this way. Like, yeah. So
I've considered, paring down my collection. I think mine is similar to yours, where I started collecting when I was 10 years old. So most of my stuff is from like 90 to now, which basically means it's worth nothing. Yeah. With a few random exceptions, like the first appearance of Deadpool kind of stuff like that. But other than that, it's not really worth anything. So I've considered selling it, but I'm like, I'm not going to get anything for it. I spent so much money on this collection, and it's like I would love to get, I don't want to say I would love to get rid of it because I have an emotional attachment to, because my dad bought me most of my comic books. He passed away a few years ago. So went out for like a good 5-year chunk. We bonded over collecting comics. He grew up with them, and he would tell me stories like, I had Amazing Spider-Man #1 and X-Men #1, and my grandmother, she made me sell it, and stuff like that. So when he found out when he saw I was into comics, he's like, all right. So he would buy me like $20-30 worth of comics like every week. We'd go to the store, and so that's why I have such a massive collection. So part of me doesn't really want to get rid of it, but now that I have my own kids, it's just like now with digital, it's like I could share this with my kids in another way rather than taking up so much space in their bedrooms. So I've considered getting rid of it.
Like my comic collection, it's just little bits of this here, random Fantastic Four issues, random this. The only thing I have a consistent run is Green Arrow. Like that's really the only book that I was like, I have to get every issue, and I have pretty much every issue. And being short of funds and stuff is the only thing. And the cost prohibitiveness of old vintage Golden Age, Silver Age comics is like, that's the only reason why I haven't gone into like the more fun and all those ones. They'll stick with what I have for now.
I mean, that actually recalls one of the earlier episodes this season called Complete Run, where we talked about being a completist. And, one of the guests in that episode, he does the same thing with Green Lantern. So when you're cultivating a run like that, is it tough? I mean, I assume the answer is yes to this, but maybe not. I mean, I assume there are points during that run where maybe you're not enjoying the book as much, but you still feel like you need to get it, or have you consistently enjoyed it?
I'll be honest with you. I have probably read a third of it. That's the other thing. I read it more because I don't. The collector in me doesn't want to open the damn book.
Oh wow!
So it's just like I have to have this book. It's in pretty good shape. I think it'll stay that way. Board and bag it, put it in a box. Don't even look at it.
It's funny because I'm rewatching Justice League Unlimited with my son right now, and there's so much Green Arrow in that, and he's treated so well in it. And my son only really grew up with. For the past couple of years, it's only really been Marvel stuff mainly because there's not many DC movies, and it's funny to him. He's always asking me like, why? He's like Hawkeye. My son just thinks Green Arrow is Hawkeye, and it's just very goofy to me that you like it's just very goofy to me that my son knows who like Rocket Raccoon is really well. But if you asked him who like Aquaman was, he'd be like, I don't know who the hell it is. I have no concept who Aquaman is. It's very weird when you think of it that way.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, like when my son gets a little older, my plan is to show him the old Super Friends cartoons because that's stuff that I kind of grew up on.
The Batman animated series is really still like appropriate, especially if they're like over 3. I would say it's definitely worth it.
Really?
Because it's not terribly. It's tame by today's standards.
Okay, yeah.
They don't show blood.
Yeah.
It's like there's no cursing.
Yeah.
Like it's good and evil. It's not really like, but yeah, no. The biggest gateway show is a Superhero Squad on Netflix.
My son actually didn't care for that.
Oh, really?
I know. I was just like, oh man. But
I
he does
started
like the
him
Lego
on that.
stuff.
I started him on that at 2. He was. That's why he loved Doctor Doom because Doom was the bad guy in it. He liked Doom and Thanos, and
That's so funny.
it introduced him to so many weird characters. And now currently he loves Avengers Assemble, which is horrible cartoon.
I can't watch it.
Horrible cartoon.
So bad.
It's really bad, but he loves it. I'm not going to knock it. They introduced Kamala Khan last week, which is great. So I was like, oh, this is great. He's got this is a good character, and they introduced her and humans and everything, and he's getting into that. It's cool.
I want to return to the question of how having kids affected your collecting, but you've all kind of hit on something that I wanted to get to, so I think we should get to it now. This idea of introducing your children to this world, because I mean, like John Eric, you said you had your dad was kind of guiding you through initially, and I don't know what your experiences were like, Joe and Matt, but for me, I didn't have anybody who was a collector or knew this world. I mean, my parents bought me those initial comics, and my dad read me those, like The Death of Superman. We sat there and he read it to me. But beyond that, I mean, this just wasn't something that they were familiar with, and and I didn't really have friends growing up who were into this either. So it was so much of it was just figuring it out on my own. In advance of this, I was thinking about the Superman titles during the 90s. This was the Triangle era, where you had 4 monthly Superman books.
Yep.
So each one came out once a month, so there was a different one each week. So essentially it was a weekly Superman adventure. So each title had its own numbering, but then there were also these triangle numbers on the cover, giving you the reading order, for that year's worth of Superman books. And I specifically remember, my parents and I were trying to figure out, what this numbering system was. And again, so I just think it's interesting now as collectors ourselves, having this opportunity to introduce somebody to this world, but in a more controlled way. There's a progression. So I'm just curious obviously it started already for some of you, but what is the plan?
Cartoons and stuff, or the books or the toys. That's when they're younger, I think the way in, and then eventually.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many stupid kid toys you can get Marvel variants on.
Oh yeah.
Stereotypical kid toys. So there's ways to do it. Or even say you're really into Superman, do a Superman theme for the nursery. We did a Captain America theme. Our nursery has Captain America Scotty Young prints framed around our nursery. That's how we got into it. We have a Captain America shield on the wall. There's Captain America bed sheets and yada yada. But there's lots of ways to toys, and then that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Star Wars ABC book that I go through.
There's a Marvel one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for for us, it's gonna end up being the characters and the toys. You know, right now he's huge into Disney stuff, so he's all about like Mickey Mouse, and you know, just that's how we put him to sleep, is just show him Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and he'll sit there and you know, he's not really getting like the lessons or whatever they're trying to teach you, but he sees the bright, colorful characters.
Oh, wait till they get to the point where they start answering questions that you don't think that'll ever happen, and then one day they wake up, and when Mickey's like, "What is this?" they'll start answering the TV like it's a sentient person, and you're just like, you're like freaked. It's very funny, but
that's awesome.
It does happen.
Yep.
That's awesome. I personally can't wait for that. It's gonna be great. You know.
God, you just get to the point where you're like, I just want to converse with you, and then when you get to that point, you're just like, I want you older, so you're not annoying.
Yeah.
You never get to that happy place. A really quick tangent. I remember before I was having kids, my coworker came up to me and was like, and I didn't understand if he said this. He was like, imagine everything you love in life, and then imagine overnight never being able to do any of that ever again. And he was like, that's having kids. And I was like, ha ha ha. And then over time, you start to be like, yeah, that's true. That's completely true. You're constantly buying free time with your sleep.
Yeah, that
it's
part
like
is
sleep
true.
is currency for like when you can do your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to watch a Netflix show? Oh, get the kids to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's why me and my wife get our kids to bed early. It was like they need to be asleep by 8 o'clock.
Benadryl your kids.
My pediatrician says that all the time.
Slip Benadryl into their drinks.
He jokes like that with us all the time. It's just like, we're not going to go that far, but we are going to get them to bed early. But yeah, it's true. Like, I'll find myself, like, last night I went to bed at like 1:30 in the morning because I was busy, you know, like reading and going through shows and stuff. And it's just like, I'm gonna pay for this in the morning. And my wife, she woke up kind of like, just like, why are you still awake? And I'm like, because it's the only time I get to like watch this, because you don't really want to watch it either. So I really have to find the time by myself.
You know, I was feeling optimistic about this whole prospect until this piece of the conversation.
But you could still, like, you know, we don't want to make anything sound negative. You could still enjoy everything. You know, I still get to read my books. I still got to watch my shows. You know, it's just about, like, in terms of time management. And, like you said, you will sacrifice some sleep, you know, for one reason or the other, whether with a crying baby or, you know.
This is gonna sound a little bit TMI, but my best advice to you is make sure your kid's breastfed, because that means that when you have to get up in the middle of the night, you don't have to make the bottle. You can sleep.
Yep.
I'm being completely serious.
I might have to cut this
I'm
out.
being completely serious. Look, and
cut it out. Don't let her hear this. Don't let her hear that.
Serious. Like, you
She's like, I know what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. Get up and make that bottle.
It's literally, because if you don't do breastfeeding, what are you going to do? Then you're going to heat up a bottle, make it. It's like 15 minutes, kid's crying. No, forget that. Forget that. Kid just sees your wife. Go at it. I'm going to sleep.
Like, hon, I'd love to, but I am quite ill-prepared for this.
I can't.
It's true. It's very true.
It is true, but it's so messed up. That's what he's saying. I'm going to get in so much trouble.
No, he's going to cut it, the whole thing.
I don't know. That's some good material right there. See, I'm torn because the future father in me versus the current podcast host, and I'm like, I don't know, because that's.
I think a lot of it too is it comes down to the type of relationship you have also.
Yeah.
Because if you guys are if you're supportive of each other before you get into that situation, and your understanding of what each person is like and does, then once you add a kid into it, it's just an extra person there to get to know and to get to know you.
That's very sweet, Joe.
like I play hockey now, so it's something I've always wanted to do. In high school, you know, I grew up in a single parent household, and my mother worked all the time, so she was like, we really can't afford hockey because it's super expensive, you know. Plus, if you know, in high school you get hit in the face, dentist bills. Fortunately now I'm in a men's league, so we don't really have hit. You hit, guess what? You're suspended now, and you have to pay a fine to the league, which is kind of ridiculous because you're already paying to be in there. But you know, it puts that thing there. But like I still get a chance to go, and she's like, "Oh, Joe's got hockey, so you know I have Connor tonight or whatever." And like she's a nurse, so she works nights sometimes, and like I'll have him all night. And like today, after I leave here, I'll be meeting her at the hospital, picking him up and just keeping him busy till 10:30, and put them down and watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
No, that is very encouraging. One thing that came to mind, John Erica, you're talking about how, well, and really just this whole conversation about, how time is so much more limited. Do you find that it's, in a certain way, maybe freeing is not the right word, but helpful? Because, one thing that's come up in a lot of these discussions about collecting is, we collect things that we might not be enjoying anymore, but we're in the habit of it or whatever. But if this forces you to kind of let some of those things fall away, and you really just spend your time on the things that you're enjoying so much that you make the time for it, is the completist in you thankful for it?
Ooh, it was hard because
it's hard.
Super hard. Yeah, because I definitely had a completist mentality for many years, but it definitely does help with that. Now I just get what I want. Like with the collecting of the action figures, it used to be like, I'm gonna get the whole set of this, because that's the team, they have to be together, and it's just like now I'm looking at it, it's like I've got no room. So if I really want this, I really need to want it, and I might only want the 1 or 2 figures from that set. I'm not gonna go nuts and get the entire Avengers. Just get the character I really want, the one that looks really cool. So that definitely helps with that, because you think automatically in your brain, it's just like, all right, is there space for it? Do I want Aaron or Elijah touching this at some point or whatever? So it's just like, you gotta, all these factors just run through your head real quickly, and sometimes it's just like, yeah, 10 years ago I might have bought this. Right now, no.
Do I really need Krypton gloves, Batman?
Yeah, right.
Really? It's just the same figure with green gloves.
Going back to that idea of introducing, your kids to this world, because I expect that I will do the same. Like, I will chart out some sort of progression and get them into this.
Yes, you will.
But part of me, it's a small part, and it's not a part that will win, but part of me is like, they should just discover it on their own, like the way I did, and they'll gravitate towards whatever, stands out to them, as opposed to me saying, like, this is the path that you should follow. Have you guys thought, has that been a thought at all?
I worry a lot that there'll be a backlash eventually, but I run into enough kids in my job where I run into kids all the time where they're like, I've even run into kids that were kids of alternate reality people, and they were like, oh, my dad read comics a lot, and they're not, it happens all the time, they're not active readers, but they're super interested in the atmosphere of it, and specifically the movie. I mean, everybody
right.
It's hard. Like, in order to say you're not into the comics, you'd have to be like, oh, I'm not into seeing all these blockbuster movies that are out. It's just weird. If this was the 90s, this would be a different question. But today, there's so much mainstream stuff with it. It's hard to differentiate between But yeah, no, it's unavoidable.
Yeah, I think kids in general are going to gravitate to stuff that they like anyway, and they're gonna see you enjoying something like, oh, let me go check that out. Let me see what that is. Mm-hmm. So the kid's gonna go to whatever they want anyway. You can just put it out there and let them kind of discover it.
True.
I know you love Superman.
Yes.
There deep down inside there is some part of Superman that you're like, I wish that never happened. Like there's that one thing you're like, just the Eradicator sunglasses, why? Stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
And karma will almost find a way to make your kid enjoy that. I have a feeling that when I was reading comics back then, I was younger, and then I liked Green Arrow. I thought he was kind of cool. I'm a big Robin Hood fan, so he had the Errol Flynn goatee and stuff. And they brought Connor Hawke, and I'm like, that's not Green Arrow, and even during the Clone Wars, the Spider-Man Clone Wars, the Ben Reilly Spider-Man, I'm like, he's got a hoodie, that's not Spider-Man. 90s. Inevitably, I know my kid's gonna be like, I like that Spider-Man because I can dress up as that one. I have red pajamas and a blue hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna happen, but as long as you guide it to, just guide them a little bit.
What if your kid? What if, for you, Joe, Green Arrow,
yeah.
And like John Eric, you were talking about the Star Wars example. And for me, certainly would be Superman. If my kid was like, "Oh, Superman's stupid,"
that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. There's gonna be that revenge. Yeah. Well, and then think of all the crappy stuff that you might have done as a kid. Just the random time you got into an argument with your parent or whatever, and you're like, oh, you like boats? Fuck boats. Your kid's gonna inevitably do that, but as they get older, they'll they'll realize, well, you know what, that's maybe I have a different take on it, you know.
I think I'm more worried at a deeper level, like the whole thing, like, you know, acting out and lashing out and saying, oh, it's stupid. I mean, that I think I would get past. But like when they're old enough to like really appreciate and be able to make a decision, if they really feel like, oh, like I don't like this character or superheroes in general, like it. I mean, I would respect it, I guess, but it would be tough.
I think if they give you the argument and start tearing down what you love on like a deeper level than just like this is stupid, where they're like, really, Superman can fly? Oh, because he says he can fly. That's why you like him. He could die. He's a Deus Ex Machina. You throw him in there. Oh, Superman will save the day. You know, that you have to actually kind of give your kid a little respect. Like, well, all right, you got me there.
I'm more so worried about my kid coming home one day and being like, "Oh, I like sports," because I wouldn't know how to handle it. Which is no, seriously, I wouldn't know how to handle it.
My kid is getting.
I'm
to
right
that
there
now.
with you.
I literally wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I would literally be, it's so weird. It's so like the opposite of how you should be thinking. But if my kid was like, I like football, I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know what to tell you.
I know. My wife is
Yeah.
like, my kids are going to be like more outdoorsy kids because I was very sheltered. You know, I grew up in the Bronx, so it was like, couldn't really play out in the streets. So my mom didn't really want me to. So I sat at home reading video games and comic books. That was my thing. And I'm very comfortable with that. So it's just like, all right, I don't mind that, you know, I grew up fine. I was happy with my childhood. So if he doesn't want to be, you know, an athlete, he doesn't have to be, but he wants to, like, right now he's in a tennis camp. Right now he asked for it. He specifically asked, and it was weird because we've never really watched tennis or anything, and he was like, I want to do tennis. I was like, all right. So we put him in a camp, and it's like, I have no idea, neither my wife or I. So it's like, this is like completely new to us, and so it's just like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. I'm more comfortable with the comic books and the video games. I could do that all day long. Once you start getting into certain sports, I'm like, unless you're getting into like pro wrestling, which I really don't want you to. That's the only one I know anything about to really get, you know. I know I've watched baseball and basketball, but to like teach it to a child, no. I'd be screwed if that goes that route.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I'm now far more worried about that than I am about if the kid doesn't like Superman, because I'm the same way. I mean, I am not athletically inclined. Like I played basketball.
At least you work out. At least that's something. You
That's
work
something,
out.
but unless the kid's like, you know, show me how to bench
wants
press.
to lift.
The kid wants to get swole.
GTL, Dad.
Then we're fine. No, but I mean, like I played basketball as a kid growing, like in elementary school. That's about it. But like I'm familiar enough with it where like I could show him or her how to play, and you know, I haven't followed the NBA in a long time, but I used to. So like I feel like I could get back into it. But almost anything else, it would really be like a foreign language to me.
I feel like I don't have to worry about it until my kid's at least in first or second grade.
They see other kids doing
yeah,
it.
because there's times he comes home from school. He's only in pre-K 4, but like there are times he comes home from school and going back to the comic book thing. He brought up to me Joker a couple days ago. I know he has like almost no concept of Joker because like the Batman stuff we watch, there's not much Joker in it. Like even the Lego stuff, there's not much Joker. It's more focused on like Justice League.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I was like, how do you know who Joker is? And they were like, oh, we were playing it at school, and like I was Joker and like chasing Batman, and like I was like, that's interesting. At least you guys are all talking about like superhero stuff. But yeah, no, it's very weird. So I'm just waiting for the day he comes home and he's like, oh, I'm a Yankee fan or something like that. I'm just gonna be like, oh God, I don't even know where to begin with this.
Go sports.
Yeah.
Sports ball.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a plan for when comic books specifically will enter the picture?
Kind of like what you were saying before about like whether you should guide or like let the kid figure it out on their own. You know, like pretty much everyone said so far, it's like you kind of guide, but I'm never gonna put a comic or a graphic novel in his hand.
Really?
I think I'll wait until he figures out. Like, he sees my collection there, and he's like, if he ever says like, oh, you know, Daddy, there's their Spider-Man thing. Can I read it? You know, then I will. I don't know if I'll take it off the shelf and give it. I'll probably give it to him on the iPad with the. especially how young
gloves.
he is. Kind of like.
I want that. I want to come back to. I want to come back to that.
Until he's like 10 years old, I don't know if I'm going to be giving him any like actual physical issues. I don't know. Well, maybe I will because they're not really worth anything. But
Especially if they're from the 90s.
Exactly.
Especially.
It's just a matter of, like you said, getting them out of the boxes and digging it through there. But I'm not gonna like force it on him. If he says I want to look at it, you know, can I read more about Superman or whatever, and then I'll give it to him. But I'm never gonna be like, oh, you should definitely definitely check this out. This is cool.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think if you were to do that, that's definitely one way for them to just resist it.
Yeah.
If you're just like, you must read this. This is the pinnacle. Nightfall. Read that. Like, no, they're gonna be like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, and then it's like homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better to play it cool.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, oh, you want to read this? Whatever.
I remember when prior to finding out that alternate reality was closing, I remember being like, wow, I'm excited because I guess Aiden was probably like your kid's age around the time we found out it was closing. How long is it closed now?
A year, just over a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember saying like, man, I can't wait to bring Aiden into the shop, and there are certain kid comics that are like great, like that G-Man draws and stuff, or Scotty Young or stuff like that. And then once it closed, I was kind of in limbo because we were moving. We were looking for a house. So I didn't know where I was going to be. So currently, I'm not even at a shop. I use Midtown Online, and they just mail me my books. So literally, I fill out like the order form 3 months in advance, which is by the way a pain in the ass because if I don't like a book, I'm out 3 issues on any book. But regardless of that, so now it's at a point where when he finally gets to the point of reading, is it that he's going to sit down with me in front of the computer screen once a month and be like, he picks his books and then I pick mine? I actually wanted like the actual physical, like you go in, you thumb through, you pick A, B, and C. But I'm completely not trying to push it. But you'll learn like everything. A lot of parenting is through osmosis.
Yeah.
Like you just do it.
It's on the fly.
Like,
yeah. Pretty much.
Like if you take like when I do my artwork, I never teach. Even though I'm an art teacher, I never teach my kid. All I do is I do work around him, and then if he feels like picking up and doing work next to me, I'm very big on that. I want him to try to absorb it almost instinctually, as opposed to me being like, "No, you have to draw. You have to hold this like this." I'm not big on that, but yeah, you'll figure it out.
My plan with you can't even find a comic unless you know where to look in my house right now because they're just in the boxes, under boxes. I don't know that I actually would. It depends because we're redoing our basement now. To make that be like,
I'm gonna bring this up. Yeah. Keep going.
To be like like a not a man cave, but just like this is where all my shit is. And I have like 3 display cases from Alternate. That's where all.
Oh
my
yeah, that's
statues,
right. Yeah.
Those are in my garage right now. But once we finish the basement, they'll be refinished and put down there. And like I don't know that I'm gonna actually have physical comics just out.
Yeah, you're gonna find like when you get to the point of when you have kids and then you're looking for a house and yada yada, you're gonna completely find that your collecting is going to dictate at least a portion. It can't not of your living arrangement. So right now we're still looking. I'm in my parents' house with my wife and my 2 kids in a connected apartment, which is just horrible. But we've been looking for a house now for 8 months. And obviously we can't find anything because the house market sucks right now. But we like need a playroom that has like a room attached that I can like dictate to be like my room that I could put stuff in. Because like I collect. One of the things I do collect is I collect Lego sets.
Oh yeah.
And there are certain things like I display those. Like I have like for example I have the Millennium Falcon set up. And there is nothing more that my kid wants than to take that thing and just smash it. Like, and I'm not saying maliciously, but like the way he play, like a 3-year-old plays. Like he'll take it and just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna crash into this thing," and it'll be dust. So like, I need something I can like up high that he can't get to. I also have all sorts of crazy frame signed prints in my attic I've never been able to show that I want to put up. So like you'll see it completely dictates like you're saying with your pop vinyl stuff.
Right.
We also collect those.
It's funny what you're saying about the Legos. I have on my above my computer shelf I have like some of the Star Wars Legos also. So I have the Darth Vader TIE Fighter because I have smaller ones. So I have the Slave One, Darth Vader TIE Fighter. I've got a Batmobile and stuff up there. And my son, ever since he was little, wants to touch it. And I actually made the mistake of letting him hold the TIE Fighter a handful of times. And then, of course, one day it's like little pieces would come off here and there, and I'd come fix it. And then one day he just dropped it, and it was just like, it's like.
The second that I even introduce him, if I let him even touch it, he would then, when I'm not looking, grab a chair, climb up there, and grab it, because then he would know, like, oh, it's open game, I can play with it. But we only just gave him my Legos from when I was a kid. Like, we thank God we kept those things.
I've got 'em
we
too.
only recently gave it to him. I would say 2 weeks ago, because he's at a point now where like he understands enough. Don't swallow things.
Yeah, exactly.
So
This
like,
does not go in the
yeah,
mouth.
but now we're gonna get into a little bit of an issue because his sister just started crawling.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
where I am too.
We have to like, you play like wall games with the kids stuff. So we'll see. I'm very big on him learning. The Legos are such a great way for him to
Oh, it's awesome.
learn. But
He loves it.
I mean, that's, I suppose, the last major topic that I wanted to hit on is, your kids' access or lack thereof to your collections. And I guess that, that's something I don't know how I would approach that either, because on the one hand, these are collections that you've cultivated and you've spent money and you're proud of your display, and statues especially, they're very fragile, and even action figures, I mean, a kid throwing them around, I mean, they'll break. At the same time, though, from the child's perspective, it's like he or she sees all these toys.
Yep.
They would expect that they would be
It's a
able
room of
to play
lies.
with them. Yeah, I mean, I know. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about
You
that?
kind of have to just start from the get-go, just explaining like there are these toys that Dad has, and there are toys that you have, and you can't. As long as you start from the beginning, they have no basis for anything else.
Right.
So like, if we started from the beginning, being like you could touch any toy, that would be a different story. But because he's only known like, in these places of the house, I can't touch these things. But like I said, if you let him in, and he like, if you even like for a minute drop your guard and you're like, you could touch this, then forget about it. It'll be open game.
Yeah.
Do they go to friends' houses and like there are toys there and they're like just say, no, I'm not allowed to play?
No.
No, but you do have to, with some boundaries. Like I have my IKEA glass display case, and I have got figures and stuff in there. And from when both of them have been very little, it's just like, don't touch the glass case. A, because it's glass, but B, just like, you're not going to get any of the toys in there. Those are Daddy's. That's for display. You don't touch it. And especially Aaron, he never even touched it. Like he tried a couple of times when he was really little, and it was just kind of like, you shoot him away, kind of like, no, don't touch that. And he's been very good about it. I made the mistake with the Lego, the TIE Fighter thing on the shelf, but other than that, for the most part, he knows what's Daddy's stuff and what he can play with. And if it's something that he really wants, I might get him his own version of it or whatever. So like I had like an Iron Man figure, and I was like, I don't know if I want, that's like one that I don't want you touching, but so I got him like those Marvel Mashers figures.
I gave him actually all my old 80s Turtles toys, everything I had. Which again my mom kept, thank God, because like I had like a lot of stuff. I had like the blimp and the layer and like the van and like all the characters. And because he watches one of the biggest shows he watches, he loves Turtles, the animated one, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I saw it. Heard.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And he like I could sit down and watch it with him and like enjoy it. But he loves that, so he got all that stuff and he digs that. It's pretty cool. Like if like keep your old stuff, I guess is a.
I've already gotten rid of like all my old action figures, so that ship has sailed. I think it's amazing though, like when your kids get older, instead of like trying to get into the liquor cabinet, they'll be like, let's try to get into Dad's toy case.
If I could only get to that X-wing.
No, I mean, I ask about it because for me, I'm an only child, and I feel like I have certain OCD-like tendencies, and I've always been incredibly careful and meticulous about all of my stuff, how I handle it, the condition, and all of that.
Yes.
But you're laughing now. But in recent years, I've kind of relaxed a bit, and I had this experience recently where. Like I said, Steph is interested in a lot of this stuff as well, which is cool. And now that we've moved in together, and all of my trade paperbacks are in the bedroom on bookshelves, she started reading some of them. Like she's a big X-Men fan. She loves Wolverine, so I gave her Old Man Logan to read, and she loved it. And so she's sitting there with the trade paperback, and again, that in and of itself was a big step for me. Like really, like a few years ago, it's like nobody could touch it. So she's reading it, and I'm watching her to see how she's holding it.
I think I see where you're going with this one.
No, and then I caught myself and I stopped and I had like this inner dialogue and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, at first of all, she was handling it just fine, but I was like, what are you doing? It's like she's interested in it. Let her read it. Let her enjoy it. She's not harming it. And you know what? If she bent a page or whatever, it's like what difference does it make? So I feel like I'm on the path towards, I think I'll be okay when the kids come around.
But God forbid if she folded that cover back over the back cover.
I mean,
that would have been like, no, put it down.
I know it would have been that would have been tough, but there was definitely that moment where I'm like, just stop, like you gotta let this go.
Yeah.
You also, it doesn't matter how much pre-mental planning you do before having kids. It's once you have the kids, your just mental process will just change.
Out the window.
It doesn't matter. You're gonna think like I'm gonna do this. Like prime example, like leading into having kids, I was like really irksome by like drool and grossness of kids, and then the second you have kids, you don't care. It's just kind of like
just knee-deep in
get
vomit.
it done, go. You just completely lose any sense of like caring about like grossness because they're gross always.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I don't know. It's weird. Your complete mental process changes. Like it's like a light switch.
Yeah.
But for you guys, I mean, at what point would you be okay with the kids going into that display case or going into your long box? Never.
Well, even I don't really go
Older,
into the
definitely.
but
Yeah,
older
and
for
not-
sure.
Once they understand that, you know, you're not going to pick up a $400 statue and just like run around the place with. Once they're old enough to realize this is something that, you know, it's here. Its purpose is to look nice. Like for me, like toys, the purpose of a toy is to give you some kind of enjoyment, whatever level that's on. So if you keep it in a box and you like looking at it, that's one thing. And a kid's obvious enjoyment is to play with it and have adventures and do things with it. So if there's something that you really, really hold dear and you didn't want to open it, like you have that vintage Superman superpowers figure, mint on card, you know, with the comic in it too. You know what? If that's something that you wouldn't want your kid to open up and play with, maybe go on eBay and find a loose one. Like that's the one. Or if you still have them, like I still have my old Superman, but I also have a mint on card Superman superpower figure. So, you know, here, take this one, play with it. You know, lose an arm or whatever. Because I know what I did. I have my Green Lantern still missing a leg. Not even like just having kids, but just getting older in general. You start to realize like I don't need half this crap. You know, like that was one of the big things that helped me cut my collecting habit down. Was I looked at how many pops I had and I was like, I don't need every single one. And you just scale it back that way. I think because as you get older, you're like, what am I going to do with this? You realize this is going to go. Take it down a little bit. We're all gonna die. It's gonna happen. Do I really need my kid going through all this shit and thinking, why the hell did he have 14 Batman figures with camo uniform, night vision why did he have this?
Your best bet is to open up a closet door and you get crushed by your collection. That's how you die. You get absorbed into your collection.
The circle is complete.
But I guess sort of, you know, to put a positive spin on that, like the whole legacy aspect, like the idea of being able to pass this on to somebody who appreciates it and enjoys it.
And that's what you hope for. You know, you hope for them to, even if it's not, like even if my kid's like, fuck Green Arrow, you know, I'm all about, you know, Aquaman. Like, okay, fine. It's still within that same similar realm, you know.
Do you guys think that it'll always be the case that, you know, you have your collection and they have their collection? Do you foresee a point where it's like, it's our collection? No,
they're probably separate. Realistically, like they'll have access to mine, but you know,
I think
like when they move out, when they're old enough, you know, college or beyond or whatever, it's just like I don't think I'm gonna be like, oh here, take my stuff with you. It's like no, I'll probably still have it.
I want that Yoda moment where like I'm on my deathbed and I'm like it's yours, and then I'm like and I just like gargle death, and like I get to pass it on to him.
But you have two, so you'll have the boy is older than the girl, so you'll have that moment of
I'm
there
calling
is
it. I'm calling it right now. Watch. I bet you my daughter is a comic nerd, but
Yes.
my son isn't.
He's gonna be into sports, and she's gonna be into comics.
I have a weird feeling like my daughter is gonna be a comic nerd. I don't know why.
You know, as collectors with kids, I mean, what have the biggest surprises been?
I wouldn't necessarily. My collecting ways didn't really change. My reading did. Like I was prior to kids, I was reading like constantly. Since having kids, I now have backlog. I have piles, and I pretty much only relegate reading to bathroom because it's the only time I'm by myself.
Yep.
Or like I'm going away tomorrow. Like, and I know because I'm going to my parents' summer house. So my parents are going to be like all over my kids. So I'm going to be able to
that's the
like,
best.
Grandma's
I'm
house is
going to
the
be
best.
like,
I
be
bring
able
my
to
iPad.
read. So I'm excited that I get to cut through my backlog because I'm like 4 weeks. I'm at least a month back.
Returning to that idea of, not letting the kids touch the stuff, because I'm just curious. And again, we've been talking about collecting so much this season. So I guess my question would be, if you, hypothetically, like if you could know that giving your kids unfettered access to your stuff would get them into it to a greater extent or faster or whatever it might be, like that, it would really just trigger something and the floodgates would open and they would just be into this and they'd be right there with you, like little mini versions of you as collectors. Would that change it at all? Would you be like, okay, like I can kind of just let it go and let them in, or not so much?
Like I've always in my brain is like, once he hits 10 years old, if he wants access to like the whole collection, I'll let him have access to it, because I think at that point he can understand everything and be able to have that conversation with that's what I said before he was even born. I don't know how it'll be. Maybe it'll be sooner, maybe it'll be later. I guess it just depends on where he's at that point. But I think I would let him have access to almost all of it, other than the figures and stuff that are away. That's just too much of a pain to get out. But but comic book wise, I'd probably let him have the access. Yeah.
I find it starts with I personally like to start with movies if it's like a pyramid, like, and then fiddle down from that. Granted, my dad was a Yonkers cop, and he took me to a lot of inappropriate movies when I was a kid. So like, I can remember going to see like Aliens and like being terrified of it. And today it's one of my favorite movies, but I have these like weird memories that are like, I saw Die Hard and I was young. I was really young.
Yeah, I went to see Action Jackson with my dad. I don't know why he was
Lethal Weapon.
Stuff like that.
Lethal Weapon was for me.
It starts with movies like right now. Like my kid's like I said 3.5, but my kid watches some Marvel movies. Like he loves Iron Man 2, which is one of the worst ones, and he because Iron Man's his favorite superhero, like by far. And he's on a big War Machine kick recently, so like he likes that movie a lot. And he likes the raceway fight scene with Whiplash, and he watches that. And then there's other weird ones, like he watches Avengers, but God forbid if I tried to get him to watch Ant-Man, he would be like, and Ant-Man's probably one of the more friendly kid ones. Yeah, he's like, no. But like I try to get them, I push the movies more so than anything, and then I feel like everything else filters down from that, and I don't push the comic book stuff, but I give him he has almost full access to like our movie library. It's just when he grabs something, if it's something inappropriate, we're like, no. You're not watching
no
that.
Showgirls, you can't watch that.
Yeah, I think like for example, we're watching tomorrow night. We're gonna watch Batman Superman. I'm probably gonna skip 1 or 2 parts, but we're gonna sit down and watch that. I'm curious to see how much it blows his mind that 2 of his favorite superheroes are beating each other up. So we'll see how that goes.
Maybe skip Superman getting smashed in the head with a sink.
That was hysterical.
It was great on the this is a tangent, but on the Blu-ray, the bonus features, they showed how they actually did that. It was just foam, and then they digitally replaced it. But it's funny, like watching him just with a piece of foam. Anyway.
That's funny. Yeah, I honestly haven't shown any of the movies or even a lot of the cartoons to Aaron yet, just because I just think with all the action and stuff, I just don't want him going around the house, especially with his little brother, trying to like karate chop him or whatever. Even without seeing it, he's already like that, so to a certain degree. So it's just like I haven't shown him Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers, and I know that's really big for kids, 4 or 5 years old. That's when the kids really start getting into that. I have not with the Marvel movies. He's also sensitive for some things like when a character like gets sick or dies, and even like the cartoons that he does see, like he gets really emotional about it. So it's like I don't know if he's ready to handle like the Iron Man movies or whatever. So it's just like that'll.
So
come
you
later.
you haven't taken him to an actual movie yet, right?
We've gone to actual movies, but they're mostly like the animated movies. Oh, yeah. Like we haven't gone to see any of the Marvel.
Yeah, we
movies
only
yet.
I wouldn't take him to go see it. It's too
anything.
overloading. Like we took his first movie was Zootopia.
Okay, yeah,
and
we saw that.
he crazy loved that, and then we took him to see Finding Dory. And he saw Angry Birds, but it's mostly like the CG animated. And he's like, I can't even tell you how excited he is about the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Oh my god, he's like, because the Lego movie is one of his favorite movies. So like, it's just crazy, but like, it's cool. Like, it's interesting viewing a lot of the stuff through his eyes because you re-get the same high that you did the first time you saw it via perceiving it through the kid's eyes. It's very interesting how that works.
That's why I can't wait to do Star Wars.
Yeah. And the funny thing is when your kid watches the movie, they have that same reaction every time you watch it. So it's not like an adult when you show them something, they're kind of jaded after one showing. Yeah. Like they could watch it like 7, 8, 9 times and have the same exact reaction every single time.
I mean, that's probably something that I would look forward to the most is, as you said, getting to see it through their eyes and even, revisiting some of the things, from my youth. I don't know how well some of them would hold up, I don't think I would read Death of Superman. Like, that wouldn't be the first thing that I would go to with the child, but like at some point I would, like if they had the interest, and it would be fun because like for me on my own to like to go back and look at it now, I don't know how much it would do for me. I mean, I guess I'd be a little nostalgic for it and maybe I'd enjoy it, but I think to be able to share it with the next generation, I'd probably get more out of it.
Yeah, he's only 9 months old, so we really haven't showed him besides, like, we'll play like the old Disney Robin Hood and Sword in the Stone, and he falls asleep immediately because he's a kid. He's 9 months old. So, but I had like a brief glimpse of the future when we were walking through Best Buy, and they were playing Batman Superman on the new Batman vs Superman on the screen, and it was the fight scene, and we're just walking by, and he goes. And he has this look of wonderment, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I hope he has this when I show him the Christopher Reeve Superman, because that to me that's 77, 78 Superman movie is like that's the ultimate superhero movie. Like, yeah, Avengers is great, and all the new ones are great, but that movie really captured the feel and the happiness and like all those emotions that run through you as a kid, wanting to put on that towel and jump around your house and fly. Like that was the pinnacle. So I'm gunning for, and I'm hoping that goes really well. but just from seeing his face on seeing Batman and Superman fighting just on this huge 55-inch screen, I think I'll have that moment. That'll be cool.
Yeah, you could like bottle it. It's crazy. Yeah. Like when they're like really excited about something, it's like it exudes. It's so like crazy. That's like one of the best things about being a parent, though. It's like one of the best things.
Well, you guys have sold me.
I think you'll do. I think you'll do fine.
Well, guys, thank you so much. This was very insightful. I enjoyed it a lot, and hopefully our listeners did as well. So thank you to our dads.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, thank you for listening. Keep tuning in. Don't be a flat squirrel.